With the current video game industry being dominated by indie titles, smaller devs, and talented individuals, the creativity of smaller voices are beginning to match the impact and success of bigger brands and companies, even rivaling AAA titles. But what if you took the passion, know-how, and drive of a smaller team and combined it with the technical skills needed to make both a graphical splash and innovative game design? Well, you get exactly what game science has been cooking up over the last 7 years. But how does a relatively new and small studio get from this
I will break you
to this in such a small amount of time? Well, that's exactly what we're going to uncover in this video, game by game. We'll discuss full circle moments, the birth and acceleration of a studio, and even a controversial investigation. So, lay back, sit tight, and let's dive into the studio behind Our story begins all the way back in 2013, when Chinese conglomerate Tencent, known for stakes in Epic Games, Ubisoft, and Activision Blizzard, with countless others, had their own subsection, Tencent Games, working on a new online MMORPG called Asura Online. Released in early September 2014, Asura Online took the player into a Chinese-themed fantasy world of humans and demonic beasts, based on the famous classic Chinese novel Journey to the West, a point we will return to much later. This project defined itself in being a darker rendition of the original novel, with endless twists to be found and putting you in the heart of the war. Playing into the game's name, Asura, which roughly translates in Eastern Asian cultures as referring to demigods, Asura Online allows you to step into the shoes of these iconic legends and wreak havoc within its isometric view, with each of the playable characters each possessing their own class and unique playing style. The game was praised for its innovative features such as interactive environments, a detailed physics engine, and balanced PvP. From flashy gameplay and insanely detailed voice-acted cutscenes, Tencent Games aimed to fully immerse the players in the lore and splendor of the world that they had created. But with no Western release, marketing not reaching its potential, and players critiquing for repetitive missions and lack of variety, the game sadly did not meet Tencent's economic needs.
Hello, I like money.
Despite promising reviews from Eastern journalists, the game was laid to rest only a few short years later. But what does this have to do with the 4K monkey man you clicked on the video for? Well, despite this game slowly being lost to the sands of time, two individuals would depart Tencent Games from this decision, namely Feng Ji, Asura's creative game designer, and the other, Yang Qi, the chief artist. Both of these men wanted to begin making games for themselves with full creative control. Therefore, after just a few months after leaving their positions within Tencent, they quickly founded Game Science in 2014 in order to pursue their gaming dreams. Now, Game Science had big ideas and plans for the future, but they also knew three things. 1, their games are hella expensive to make. 2, they take a lot more manpower than they currently could afford. And 3, it is often considered a pretty commercially risky move to develop premium console games, especially when your company hasn't even taken its first steps yet. So, with a handful of developers with big dreams and goals to reach, they decided to take their shot with the ever-growing Chinese gaming market of free-to-play mobile and online games, and in just 1 week, they created the prototype of Now, 100 Heroes was a history-themed mobile card game loosely based on the Three Kingdoms period in China, loosely being the key word, as it featured mechas, monsters, and an empire ravaged by a viral infection, turning its victims into undead, making it the player's job to create your own party of legendary heroes to battle and unravel the mystery behind all of the chaos. The game was only possible due to several of the co-founders using their own savings in order to kickstart this project, gambling a lot of money. But luckily, with the assistance of China's leading online game service NetEasy, the game was published in 2015. In terms of success, the game did relatively well considering it was their first game, well enough to provide their resources to carry on their creative journey, a worthy accomplishment. But Feng Ji later went on record stating how despite being very popular with users in the early stages, the game failed to stick the landing and many users left after a short while. Feng linked this, very bluntly, to the fact that 100 Heroes was essentially a reskin of Dota Legend style card battle gameplay, and that such a copycat product could not have a long-term vitality. To many, this may seem pretty harsh words to say on your own work, but it is a realistic dive into the team's mindset. They were aware they needed something quote-unquote safe in order for the team to find their feet, and highlights the expectations they were holding themselves to in the future. Therefore, they were determined that for the next project, the team had to create something that hadn't previously appeared on mobiles, something new and fresh to the medium. So, Game Science would get back to work on their next adventure, Art of War, a free-to-play multiplayer strategy game that allows different teams on the same platform to battle against each other in a tug-of-war inspired gameplay loop which focused on simple mechanics but sophisticated strategic gameplay. The game was released by Hero Games in 2016 and was the first game in the founder's history to make it outside of Asia, with it first releasing on Steam for testing and later launched on the App Store, where, on the day of its launch, it was recommended on the front page of the Apple App Store in 187 countries around the world. Before that, only games such as Mario Run, Monument Valley, and Clash Royale had received such a courtesy. And in 2017, Tim Cook himself visited Game Science in his trip to China, with Red Tides being one of the few domestic games that the Apple CEO had personally played. Even now, it sits with a mostly positive reviews on Steam and mostly praised for its addictive gameplay, despite support having stopped in 2022. And with the fact that this was only Game Science's second release, the company had already managed to fund a good pot of finance and experience, bringing in enough stable revenue to think bigger. It was here Yang Qi told Fiang, "It's time to do what we wanted to do from the beginning." And despite an initial hesitation that it was still too early, the team eventually agreed it was time. But no one could have expected what came next. Before I dive into the context of how we got here,
show your process.
Well, first I draw this head, then I erased some of the more detailed features, and 1, 2, 3, a circle!
Let's first explain what Black Myth Wukong actually is. To put it bluntly, Wukong is an action RPG rooted in Chinese mythology, more specifically the 16th century novel Journey to the West, one of the 4 great classic novels of Chinese literature. The novel has been a countless source of inspiration for a multitude of media, from Dragon Ball, Enslaved, and even, this. Much of the game's story remains under tight wraps, but what we do know is you are set out as the Destined One, challenging monsters and marvels alike to uncover the truths of the world and legends as old as time, experiencing large battles and beautiful scenery. The game follows a mostly linear progression mixed with larger areas and arenas for you to wreak your godlike powers of destruction, specifically mastering various staff techniques, freely combining different spells, abilities, weapons and equipment, and even the ultra insane ability of transformation, with each various form providing new skills and tricks to finding your own winning strategy, in order to take down the powerful foes and worthy rivals throughout your journey. Wukong is often labelled with being a Souls-like, which Game Science themselves has openly gone against.
Even the notion.
Now, the Souls-like attribute is placed upon more games than perhaps is warranted these days, but with Wukong having campfire-esque respawn points, experience drops on death, flask health potions, and enemies respawning after each rest, it is easy to see where the confusion stems from, even if it does have a pause function. It doesn't take away from what Game Science has seemingly created here. Its visuals, unique blend of action genres, and scale of abilities all make it stand out amongst the crowd, an action RPG akin to that of Sony's first-party titles, with God of War even being one of the team's inspirations. Which takes us back to the studio. How did we get here? Well, it was back in 2015 when Young first brought it up, and the idea was dismissed rather swiftly. So, naturally, after the success of Red Tides, he tried his shot again, saying, if we always wait until everything is ready before doing it, then we will never be ready. In this case, how long should we wait? Further winning the team over. It was here Young would draw up some new core principles for the company, as if they were going to do this behemoth of a task, they were going to do it right. Many of these principles have been kept under wraps, but what we do know is that these principles included immersive growth-driven gameplay and uncompromising high-quality graphics, setting the team with high goals and expectations, and setting the foundation to begin working on Black Myth Wukong, and work they did. And in just 3 years, after already doing an intense amount of development with Unreal 4 Engine, they had created a substantial amount of progress, drafting up concept art and beginning to put it all in action. But it was here, as a team of roughly 30 developers, they realized that in order to arrive at their vision, they needed to enlist some help. Therefore, in August 2020, they would release an announcement trailer with the purpose of hopefully catching the eye of talented applicants. But the team had no idea what awaited them, as after just a few hours, the trailer had gained millions of views worldwide. They would receive an overwhelmingly amount of job applicants from eager developers and emails from industry professionals and gaming journalists, something Game Science was not prepared for. Fyung later stated that his heart was filled with pride seeing such overwhelmingly popularity, but as the day continued, that pride would be riddled with fear and anxiety. For such praise is a double-edged sword, as if promises aren't kept or steps not taken correctly, it would harm this still growing independent production team irreversibly. Young stated that he simply turned off his iPhone and put his SIM card into a feature phone in order to escape the initial panic. A valid reaction. In order to combat these feelings, the team would spend the next week diving into what people had to say about the trailer, picking up not only what people had praised them for, but spotlighting its shortcomings. To them, they now had the sword of Damocles hanging over their heads. For now, Black Myth Wukong had certainly reached the top, but this also meant that there was an abyss at the foot. If something promised is not fulfilled, then the letdown would be immense. So back to work they went, with a tall order in front of them, but also around 100 employees now working. Later on that year, they had stated the game was aiming for 15 hours of game content with over 160 enemies. At present, it seems that they have even higher goals than that. And in 2021, Game Science would have a truly special full circle moment, with the company gaining the attention of the founder's former employer, Tencent. It was here Tencent would gift the studio technical support, financial support, and even the use of Epic's Unreal 5 engine, at just a small cost of a 5% stake. An impressive deal when compared to their 30% stake in Larian Studios. So, with a new engine, a great investor, and eager fans, everything was looking up for the studio. This was until November 20th, 2023, where IGN would release a damning investigation piece into Game Science. Within it, they detailed a multitude of incidents in which Game Science and its head developers displayed unprofessional conduct, mostly centering towards women. These consisted of multiple references to genitalia, sexual innuendos, and sexist statements, specifically quoting them on comments of masturbation tips towards their own female characters, alleged past recruitment posters depicting a rear view of a woman with the caption, "Don't screw your colleagues," and another bluntly stating, "Fatties should f*** off," with countless other accounts that IGN addresses within the article. Now, if true, I do not condone or believe there is any excuse to such statements, and they are not acceptable in any form or in any sense of reason, completely unacceptable. My job here is simply to display facts and information, and with journalists still to this day trying to get any form of statement from Game Science, it is a piece of the studio's history I couldn't ignore. I will say, however, that since the release of this article, many have come to Game Science's side, calling out IGN for mistranslated text, misunderstood themes, and a possible $7 million interference with Sweet Baby Inc., a studio known for aiding games such as God of War and Assassin's Creed in creating more inclusive, authentic, and enriching stories within video games. Many believe in Game Science turning down such a partnership, it opened up the floodgates for partner journalists to attack. This is all speculation, however, and is a part of the reason there is such a discourse around the issue, especially in regards to cultural differences and phrasing, leading many unsure on what to believe and misinformation rampant. So, I will link the articles below and allow you all to make your own conclusions in your own time. Despite this, however, in the years since Tencent's investment, Black Myth Wukong has continued to thrive. On August 20th of every year, during the Chinese Lunar New Year, Game Science has released new gameplay trailers for fans to enjoy, concept art, demos to dive into, and breathtaking snippets of the game's thrilling journey. Hype is only seeming to build for this creative action RPG, with it currently sitting as #1 on Steam's wishlist, even with Game Science still holding cards to their chest as much is unknown about the game's plot, characters, and world. The journey Game Science has had in just a few years has been extremely interesting to research into, and I hope you've enjoyed me sharing it. From epic battles, luscious music, and gorgeous designs, are we seeing the rise of the next big studio? Time will only tell. And with the game releasing on August 20th, we won't be waiting long to see if Wukong will solidify itself against the great epics it was inspired by. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been my third video, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you joining me on my YouTube journey. I'm learning with each one, and I appreciate every comment and like you guys leave me. It really does help. So until next time, this has been The Gaming Staple.